Hello, 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 everybody. My name is Michael, or Kiratze Online. Hopefully, you guys are having a positively fantastic day so far, and I'm here with another episode of You Should Play, and this is You Should Play Remnant from the Ashes. This is a game developed by Gunfire Games, and that might be familiar to some of you guys. These are the developers from, I believe, Darksiders 2 Enhanced Edition, as well as Darksiders 3, and you will see some influence from those games. Obviously, you can tell it's from the same creators, but they've built a really amazing new world with a lot of cool new things in it, and it's been really successful so far. Not only for myself, I have seen many other people play and have just fallen in love with it, and it's been almost sort of a surprise hit. I think a lot of people like myself were extremely excited about this game. I've been waiting for this game for a very long time since it was first announced. And I think a lot of people like myself were pretty excited about this game because everything about it seemed like right up most people's alley. It had cooperative play. It had a lot of cool loot in it. A really interesting world. And I was like, okay, yeah, I'm in. So I played the game over the VIP early access weekend. It's the weekend preceding launch. At the time of this recording, official launch isn't until tomorrow, but you could essentially buy the game right away and still play it. I think PS4 is the only one who got shafted because I don't think they got early access. I think the game's on PS4 if I'm not mistaken. I think it was PS4, Xbox, and PC. I could be. Hopefully, I'm not wrong about that, but I could be wrong about that. And so yeah, I played through the game and I've fallen in love with it. It's everything I wanted and more. It definitely was. It definitely surpassed my expectations, I think. Just with how fun the gameplay was and stuff like that. It was, to be honest, it was a lot less janky than I thought it was going to be. I actually thought it was going to be a little bit jankier, a little bit a lower budget, maybe, I guess is not the best word to say, but with some of these games you can definitely tell like they're a little bit more indie and stuff like that. This game definitely felt not really that indie. There's obviously some room for polishing and stuff like that, but hell, the game hasn't even officially launched yet. And I'm still loving it. So what is Remnant from the Ashes? For those of you who haven't heard about what the game is, it is a third-person cooperative shooter, dungeon shooter, and that's sort of my description for it. This is one of those games where it's sort of difficult to actually describe what the game is because it draws so many other elements from other games. You could definitely argue that this is sort of like a Dark Souls light system. I say that because, it has mechanics directly from the Dark Souls games. For example, it has an Estus flask mechanic. It also has a bonfire mechanic. Additionally, it has a little bit of, Warframe in it because it's procedurally generated. So it's one of those things where, when you do replay through the game, you will encounter sort of similar tile sets and things like that, but just sort of in a different arrangement. But the very cool thing about this game is it does support replayability, and the gameplay is, for at least for me, is extremely fun. And fun enough where I am really looking forward to playing through again. I actually beat the game over the weekend, and I am looking forward to starting. And I just started a hard difficulty playthrough, and there's 3 different difficulties: as normal, hard, and nightmare. The way the game works is you are dealing with a procedural generation system and that affects the map layout, that affects bosses, loot, and secrets, as well as NPC encounters. Now, I wouldn't call this a looter shooter. This is definitely not a looter shooter. You are looting a lot of stuff, but it is only pretty much just resources and money, just scrap that you can pick up off the ground and break by breaking boxes and stuff like that, as well as there are occasional loot pickups, but those are sort of just locked behind the tile sets that they come with. So it's not like Borderlands, for example, or any of those style of games where or Division, where you are killing mass amounts of enemies and each one has a potential to drop loot. In this case, the enemies only drop ammo or scrap or resources to upgrade your guns with and gear. Everything else is going to be more through finding secrets, NPC encounters, boss fights. That is how you get mods, gear, and weapons. They definitely went along the lines of quality over quantity. there isn't a bajillion weapons in the game, but every weapon has a place in the world in the sense that it's not like SMG with a yellow rarity or a or the exact same SMG with a different modifier and a lower rarity. It's very much each gun has a little bit of lore attached to it. It's similar to Dark Souls, where it has like some flavor text on it, and it has its own unique look, unique name, and sometimes even unique mods. And of course, has its own unique stats as well. So every gun does feel really different. That's what I really love about it. Even as someone who loves just looting mass amounts of things, it is nice to see they put quite a bit of care with the weapons and with the design of the world and the gear and stuff like that. And I really like that, especially when it comes to the armor sets, because the armor sets in this game look fantastic. And it really, really is cool seeing you being able to mix and match them. I do hope they get a transmutation system in, though, because there are some armor sets that I really like the look of, but not so much the fan of the armor bonus or sort of the gear set bonus. Each armor, you have 3 different armor pieces: head, body, and feet, or legs. And you can, depending on every single armor type, or sorry, armor set has its own different type of bonus. So for example, the one that I ended up with was a Slayer set or an Assassin set, and it came with the Slayer bonus, which for each piece that I wore, I got an extra percentage on my next shot within 1 second after reloading. And that worked really well for my build because I had a single shot high damage pistol. So I would always be getting that buff going all the time. So it's really, really cool. Now, there aren't any classes in the game. At the very start of the game, you will be selecting, or near the start of the game, I should say, after you're done the tutorial, you will be selecting an archetype. I sort of wish they would change the wording for that because it's not really accurate in terms of the impression that you get when you get to that selection screen. You think that, oh, this is going to be my build or my class for the rest of the game. It actually is just your starting equipment. It gives you a starting unique trait. I think that's the only thing that might be unique to the archetype. I'm unsure, but I believe you can still get everything in the game anyways. And it just dictates your starting gear. After you're done sort of the early area, you'll be able to go to your hub and purchase the other starting equipment if you would rather do something from one of the other archetypes. So it isn't locking you in, essentially. It's just giving you a guidance, I guess, and giving you your own starting gear. But they are quite different, and they do have different guns and stuff like that. So at least for the first hour or so, you'll definitely want to pick one that you might enjoy, I guess is the best way to put it. So yeah, on top of all that stuff, it's got a really, really cool trait system. So when you level up in this game, you do get trait points, and the traits in this game are your passive skills. So I think I heard there's like 35 different traits you can get in the game. I could be incorrect about that. I don't know if anyone has a precise number for that yet. But they range from things like reload speed to crit chance bonus to melee damage reduction to mod power generation. And there's a huge, huge variety. Now, the interesting thing is this game is definitely much about exploring. If you're one to explore and try to find secrets in this game, this is going to be right up your alley, because that's going to be where you're getting the most gear, web mods, and things of that nature, is because their side dungeons will always generally have either a puzzle at the end or a secret of some sort or mini boss that will give you a unique trait, weapon, what have you. And that is actually how you do get traits in this game, is by almost doing achievements. So by defeating certain bosses, you'll get certain traits. You can even find traits out in the world by doing certain puzzles, and just doing certain actions in the game will net you a unique trait. And that's really, really cool. Now, obviously, this game is definitely not the one for, if you're the type of person who wants to do everything in one playthrough, that's going to be impossible. And that's due to the procedural generation. In this game, there's going to be a bunch of different side dungeons and stuff like that as you're doing through the main game. And there's only a chance that you might get a certain optional boss or a certain NPC encounter or a certain secret, just due to the way the tile sets are built and stuff like that when your world is generated. You'll notice when you get to the main hub, there is an option to re-roll your campaign. And that's a big part of this game, actually, is replaying it. Because when you re-roll the campaign, it'll re-roll, all the tile sets. It'll re-roll the world, so you can potentially roll a new boss that you didn't get before, or a secret that you didn't get before. When after I was done my playthrough, we started a hard difficulty playthrough, and right within the first hour, in the first area, I encountered a new, I think it was a new mini boss. It was either a new mini boss or a new NPC encounter. I can't remember. But it was a new thing, essentially, that I didn't even experience in my whole first playthrough before. And I ended up getting a unique item from that. And that's what I really love about the game. And luckily, they did make the gameplay extremely fun, where you don't mind playing through it over again, because a lot of it, it's a very, very quick game. It's very, very interactive. It's very dodge based, just like Dark Souls. You do have iframes when you dodge, so it's a lot about timing as well as being efficient with your shots. Ammo is pretty scarce in the game, in terms of if you are missing your shots a lot. There's not a huge amount of ammo you do carry with your weapons. You will run out in some bosses, so it is a little bit consumable reliant in this game. You do want to be buying ammo boxes, and luckily they do make them really, really cheap, so it's not even that big of a deal. But if you're one to sort of not use consumables like that, well, you might have a little bit of a tough time. Oh, excuse me. So yeah, that's the way the procedural generation system works. I do believe in the next few weeks they're hoping to get adventure mode out, and adventure mode will allow you to re-roll specific worlds and biomes as opposed to the whole campaign. And that'll be nice. It's just sort of let you skip the campaign beats rather than having to do the campaign cutscenes and stuff like that over again. And when you re-roll your campaign, I should note that it is New Game Plus essentially. And you can also re-roll your campaign whenever you want. The thing about this game is there will always be a challenge because enemies are scaled to your gear. And so I believe it takes like your top 3 pieces of gear or something like that and averages it. If you actually want to look for a specific answer, one of the developers actually talked about it in the Remnant game Reddit, as well as they are really active in Discord. So that's a good thing to ask if you are interested on that kind of thing. But other than that, let's see, what was I gonna say? Oh yeah, enemies are scaled up to your level, so it'll take the average of your top 3 pieces and sort of add an extra level on top of that, so you're always challenged to the enemies. So regardless of when you re-roll your campaign, when you enter the zone for the first time, any zone for the first time, that's when it rolls what the difficulty is going to be for those enemies, and it stays like that. So it's not like when you upgrade your gear and come back to a zone later that you'll have that scaling happen again. Once the difficulty is rolled for that zone, for the enemies, it stays like that. So you can always go back, and so if you go back into a previous zone after you've upgraded your gear, you'll completely steamroll them. So yeah, other than that, the world building is really, really cool. You're going to be finding a lot of it mainly through the lore, in terms of looking at the flavor text of the gear, through diaries. And interestingly enough, a lot of the diaries and some of the audiobooks, I think I've only seen 1 or 2 audiobooks. I don't know if there's that many, but diaries are pretty common in this game. And those are found by exploring. Some of them are locked behind secrets. So if you don't get that secret rolled in your world, you'll actually not get the full picture of the world. Now, that being said, it's not like necessary story information. It's just world building. I wouldn't say this is a story-based game, but it's definitely a world building game. You don't really have all the answers about this world. It's sort of like Dark Souls. It's very ambiguous, albeit it does make more sense. And I do hope that they add more into the game for the story and stuff like that. It definitely does, especially with the ending, the way the game ended. It definitely allows for easy DLC implementation. And I think they just prepared for that right off the bat. I think as a core component about this game, they figured, okay, we need to design it in a way where we can easily implement DLC and have it fit within the world and not have to change much, because you are dealing with different worlds in this game and you're traveling to different worlds. I mean, it's super easy for them to just create a new world with new NPC encounters, new secrets, new bosses, new gear, and just throw it into the game and have you be able to teleport to that. It's really, really awesome, and I'm really, really looking forward to seeing a new DLC from the game, because I just want to play more. I just want more options, more gear, and more boss fights. The boss fights are amazing in this game, and they're super, super epic. countless streamers I've walked into their stream when they're fighting a boss with their friends, and they always comment on how epic the fights are, and they really really are. You are always dodging, moving, weaving, trying to kill ads at the same time. Um, and especially the music is surprisingly good. Some of the boss fight music, I found myself like getting into it, similar to Final Fantasy 14 online boss fights. Um, Now, if you are playing this game co-op, the enemies do scale health-wise and damage-wise, I believe, and it does it through the host. But if you are, I believe, a difference of 3 levels, it will go to whoever is higher, I think is how it works. I know it's sort of similar to Diablo, I think is how they did it. Diablo 3. And I would definitely say solo is the easiest way to play the game. I've seen multiple people say solo is the hardest, but to be honest, I disagree. Maybe it's because of my build. I ended up with an extremely strong build by the end of the game, and I was doing really damn well. I was first trying most of the bosses. It was still challenging, but I still was able to do it. So it wasn't like anything was a cakewalk, but I still did really really well. I would say I ended up steamrolling through all of the basic mobs though. I was able to one shot most of the basic ads, which isn't a common thing in this game. But in terms of elite mobs and stuff like that, it's still it still provided a decent challenge. So it could have been just my build, but even the very final boss, I I ended up doing first try, as well as one of the other bosses I did first try. Whereas I've seen a couple of streamers when they're playing in a group, it spent them almost an hour and a half to actually beat it. So it's definitely one of those games where difficulty level is hard to summarize for other people, because everyone's experience is going to be quite different. It really depends on how comfortable you are with games like this. I personally am at home with games like this. I'm pretty confident in my aim. I'm really good at dodging, and these games are sort of up my alley, I guess is the best way to put it. So maybe I'm just more comfortable with these games and sort of the gaming tropes that are involved with it. Maybe I'm just used to it. Additionally, the fact that I played solo means nothing was scaled up in terms of health and stuff like that. So maybe that's another big reason. Additionally, I do believe they throw more ads and more enemies at you if you do have more people in the game. So that is also another big thing. I did have some AoE stuff to deal with that, but at the same time, that definitely would have made it a little bit more challenging. I am going to be looking to play with more people through my hard playthrough, but I definitely wanted to play through this solo just to see how it felt. And I can definitely say for certain, like, even though I said it was relatively easy, like I said, it wasn't a cakewalk. Like, even if you're playing solo, it's still going to be quite challenging, especially if you are unfamiliar with games like this, or if you're not a very good shooter. You definitely will have trouble. And it also depends on your build. With the way the mods work in this game, your abilities, there isn't any magic in this game. But the way the abilities work is you have, if in the bottom right, you can see sort of 2 different circles. Those are my mods slotted into my guns. Each gun slot has a mod, or each gun has a mod slot. Some of the unique guns have unique mods that aren't removable. But you are able to earn these mods through bosses and stuff like that, and they'll give you special abilities. And that is essentially your magic in the game. So I had a mod, for example, that was able to shoot out radioactive bolts. There was another mod that gave an AoE health regen for allies and yourself. There was another mod that I found through a totally cool random dialogue. Well, not a random dialogue choice, but there was an ally that you can talk to, and I was able to use a dialogue option to refuse him for something, and he turned into a boss at that point, and he gave me this really cool, unique weapon that allowed me to resurrect myself if I died, which was super, super cool. So things like that are really, really awesome in this game. It's one of those games where you can do a complete playthrough and look at someone else's playthrough, and it'll be quite a bit different in terms of what gear they did, what bosses they did, and what things they found. So yeah, you gain mod power by damaging and killing enemies, and then you're able to use that mod on that weapon. I really like that system. It is nice not to have to worry about like a resource system where it's like, oh, I ran out of mana or something like that. So it works perfectly in this game. There's always enough things to shoot, and there's even things to augment it. For example, for a lot of the game, I had an ex-cultist set, and that was the starting archetype I chose. which allowed me to gain extra mod power on crits. And then I ended up getting a passive trait unlocked that allowed me to get a crit chance bonus. So it was at that point where you can sort of, when you get near the end game, you can start finalizing and figuring out your build and stuff like that. When you do complete a campaign run at the very final boss, you do get an item that does allow you to respec. So in your next playthroughs, you can change your whole traits and stuff like that, because you do end up getting quite a few trait points. I don't actually believe there's a hard cap for the trait system, or sorry, a hard cap for like levels in terms of trait level and gaining trait points. So at some point it would be like theoretically possible to get every single trait maxed up to 20, and 20 is the max level for guns and or gear and traits, I believe. Now it does sort of run under the same system as Dark Souls in terms of upgrading your gear, where you start with a basic iron resource, and then you upgrade. You when you start encountering higher difficulty enemies, you get forged iron, then galvanized iron, then hardened iron. And that's only hardened iron actually to get your item from 15 to 20. I think you can actually only get that through hard and nightmare difficulties. Because in my whole normal run, even at the very last enemies, I never saw a piece of hardened iron. So I definitely would recommend everyone do normal. The game is quite difficult. Even basic mobs can kill you, which is sort of the same idea as Dark Souls, that everything's sort of a threat. And impossible. Nightmare, I would consider being impossible for anyone who's doing it as their first run. You don't get a difficulty choice right off the start, but you do have the option of re-rolling your campaign pretty much right off the bat, and that's when you can select your difficulty. So if you wanted to, you can probably start a hard run. I would say that it's possible to do the game on hard as your first playthrough, but hard and nightmare I think are designed by default to be more as a new game plus type difficulty. So yeah, I definitely be wary about that. And again, like I said, it does matter. It does matter a lot, I think, if you are playing with other people or not. Additionally, it's good to note if you are playing with other people, the host is the only one that progresses. So if you are playing with the same people, definitely try and make sure you are sort of staying in the same vein and same areas as each other, since you obviously don't want to progress without them. So yeah, host is the only one that progresses, but this is one of those games where if you are playing with other people, you are generally going to be sticking with them and playing with them anyways throughout the whole thing. A whole run on normal as solo took me about 14 hours, and that was with me exploring pretty much everything. So I could say if you sped through it, you could probably beat it around 10 hours. It is only a $40 game, which is amazing. I think it's really well priced. It's not a full priced game or a full $60, or $80 if you're Canadian like myself, luckily. So it's only $45 Canadian. So I think it's extremely well priced considering you are meant to play through it over again. So you could get many more hours of enjoyment out of it, especially when they start introducing new content and stuff like that. So you could probably look to see about 10 to 15 hours you should be able to complete a run. But again, I steamrolled through quite a bit of it because I was doing quite well. I could definitely say if you were having trouble, you could be 15 to 20 hours potentially. But yeah, that's Remnant. Hopefully you guys enjoyed watching this. I will be streaming a little bit more of this through my hard playthrough, so if you want to look at that, you can check out my Twitch link in the description below. But other than that, guys, thank you guys so much for watching. Hopefully you guys have a great rest of your day, and I will see you guys next time.